Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Why is it that you can survive things most people would break under, but you can't stick to a simple routine for 30 days? You've handled school fees that appeared out of nowhere. You've stretched 20 CDs like it was elastic. You've watched your parents argue about money and promised yourself you'd never live like that. So why can't you wake up at 5 a.m. consistently? Why does saving money feel almost painful? Why does discipline feel harder for you than it seems to be for someone who grew up comfortable? Here's the uncomfortable question. What if the very survival skills that kept you alive are now sabotaging your success? Stay with me, because if you grew up with scarcity, discipline isn't just hard, it feels unsafe. And until you understand why, you'll keep blaming yourself for something that isn't a character flaw. It's conditioning. Let me show you. Think about a child who grows up hearing, "We can't afford that." Not once, not occasionally, but constantly. School trips? Too expensive. New shoes? Maybe next term. Electricity off? Again. Now imagine that same child becomes 24, ambitious, watching business podcasts, talking about investing, saying, "This year I'm locking in." But every time they try to delay gratification, their body resists. Here's what I mean. Discipline is delayed reward. Scarcity trains you for immediate survival. Those two don't speak the same language. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think discipline is about willpower. It's not. In 2012, researchers at Princeton published a study on what scarcity does to the mind. They found that when people are preoccupied with financial scarcity, it literally reduces cognitive bandwidth. Not intelligence, bandwidth. Think about your brain like a phone with 100% battery. Scarcity runs apps in the background, constantly. Do we have enough? What if this doesn't work? What if I lose everything? Now your battery is at 40%, and you're trying to run discipline on low power mode. Of course it feels harder. But it gets deeper than that. Let me tell you about Kofi. Kofi grew up in a one-room apartment in Accra. 5 people, 1 fan. When the power went off, everyone just endured it. Complaining didn't change anything. At 17, Kofi learned something powerful. If you see money, you use it, because tomorrow it might not be there. Fast forward to 26, he starts earning decent money, not rich, but stable. He tells himself he'll invest, but when money hits his account, something happens. He spends, not recklessly, just enough to feel relief. New phone, small enjoyment. Nice dinner, just this once. Then guilt. Then shame. Then a YouTube video about discipline. Here's the twist. Kofi isn't weak. His nervous system learned that money is temporary. If you grew up where food sometimes ran out, your body doesn't fully trust later. It trusts now. And discipline is built on the promise of later. Do you see the conflict? This is why someone who grew up comfortable can save 40% of their income without panic. To them, money feels renewable. To someone raised in scarcity, money feels like rain in the dry season. You collect it quickly, you use it quickly, you don't assume it will return. Now, let's go somewhere uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed that when life finally becomes stable, you create small chaos, miss deadlines, procrastinate, start strong, then disappear? Why? Because stability feels unfamiliar. Chaos feels like home. If you grew up where every month was uncertain, your nervous system calibrated to unpredictability. So when things are calm, you subconsciously disrupt it. It sounds dramatic, but think about it. How many times have you been serious about your goals only to self-sabotage when progress starts? That's not laziness. That's familiarity bias. Your brain prefers known pain over unknown peace. And here's the part no one says out loud. Scarcity makes you hyper-aware of status. You remember being the kid who couldn't afford something, the one who wore last year's shoes, the one who avoided certain conversations. So when you finally have money, discipline feels like going back to that feeling.
Saving feels like deprivation. Budgeting feels like restriction. Saying no feels like returning to lack. Even if logically you know you're building wealth. Emotion doesn't care about logic. It cares about memory. Let's reset for a second. If you're watching this and thinking, this is me, good, because awareness is the first break in the pattern. But we're not done. There's another layer. When you grow up in scarcity, you become incredibly good at reacting. Crisis, you adapt. Problem, you solve. Emergency, you handle it. You become resourceful. But discipline requires planning for non-emergencies, and that feels unnecessary. If you spent your childhood solving urgent problems, long-term planning feels like a luxury. Why focus on 10-year goals when this month might collapse? That mindset kept your family afloat, but it will cap your future. And this is where ambitious Africans struggle silently. You're trying to build generational wealth with a nervous system trained for generational survival. That's a different operating system. Let me say something slightly controversial. Some of the wealthiest habits look irresponsible to a scarcity mind. Investing instead of holding cash, quitting a stable job to build something scalable, spending money on skills instead of visible assets. To someone raised in stability, that's strategic risk. To someone raised in scarcity, that's danger. So you hesitate, you overthink, you delay. Then you call it procrastination. But here's what I want you to see. Your lack of discipline isn't proof you're incapable. It's proof your brain learned the wrong game for the level you're trying to play now. And games have rules. Scarcity's rules are simple. Use it now. Don't trust tomorrow. Avoid risk. Protect what you little have. Abundance's rules are different. Delay gratification. Trust compounding. Take calculated risk. Invest in invisible growth. You can't win the second game with the first rulebook. So what do? First, stop shaming yourself. Shame drains bandwidth. Remember the Princeton study. Scarcity already reduced it. Shame reduces it further. Second, separate safety from comfort. Here's what I mean. Your body might feel unsafe when you save money instead of spending it, but you are not unsafe. You are uncomfortable. Discipline often feels like deprivation when you grew up deprived. But it's not deprivation, it's direction. There's a difference. Let's talk practically. If you try to jump from chaos to extreme discipline overnight, you'll fail, because your nervous system will revolt. Instead, build micro-trust. Save 5%, not 40. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, not 5 a.m. Invest small amounts consistently. Prove to your brain that tomorrow does in fact come. You're reprogramming memory. And this takes time. But here's the beautiful part. People who grew up in scarcity have one advantage others don't. Hunger. Not desperation, hunger. You know what it feels like to have nothing. Once your discipline catches up to your ambition, you become dangerous in the best way. Because you don't waste opportunity. You don't take stability for granted. You respect growth. But only if you heal the survival wiring. Let me leave you with something personal. Maybe no one told you this. You weren't supposed to think long-term at 10 years old. You were supposed to survive. And you did. That child did her job. Now it's your job to upgrade the strategy. Discipline isn't about becoming someone else. It's about teaching your nervous system that the war is over, that building is safe, that saving is safe, that planning is safe. And once your body believes that, consistency stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like power. If this hit close to home, don't just nod and move on. Sit with it. Ask yourself where your habits are protecting an old version of you. And if you're serious about escaping survival mode and building something bigger, stay here. This channel exists for that transition, from surviving to scaling. And the next time you call yourself undisciplined, remember this. You were trained for a different battlefield. Now you're learning a different game. That's not weakness. That's evolution.